Paolo Paul Gambino, also known as Don Paolo, was born on November 20th, 1904 in Palermo, Sicily. He was one of four Gambino brothers and the kid brother of mob boss Carlo. His other two brothers were named Nino and Joseph. He was also a cousin to the Castellano, Massato, and Guglielmini families, who were all mob-connected. He resided at 1219 East 12th Street in Brooklyn. Paul and Carlo married two sisters with the surname Castellano. The sisters were also their cousins. During the Castellammarese War, a gunman shot at and attempted to kill Paul, mistaking him for his brother Carlo. Although they missed their target, the incident was enough for Carlo, Paul, and their Palermo contingent to swing their support over to Mangano, a pivotal event helping to turn the tide of the war to Mangano's favor. By the 1940s, Paul Gambino was identified as a major figure in New York's Mangano family and was identified as a member by Joe Valachi during the televised U.S. Senate hearings of 1963. He was listed by the FBI as one of the top capo di decina of the family, especially during his brother Carlo's reign as boss from 1957 forward. Paul Gambino was involved in a variety of rackets, including black market rackets, stolen and counterfeiting gas ration stamps during World War II, liquor alcohol bootlegging, counterfeiting U.S. currency, alien smuggling, heroin smuggling and wholesale distribution, gambling, and extortion. His longtime close business and family associates included Francesco Don Cheech Scalisi, Giuseppe Joe Scalisi, and Giacomo Scalisi, Constantino Paul Castellano, Salvatore Toto Guglielmini and Frank Guglielmini, Pasquale Conti, Thomas Massato, and Peter Castellana, Giacomo Jack Scarpola and Joseph Joe Bandy Biondo, and Benjamin Castellano, Rosario Salma Salma, Antonino Nino Conti, Calagio Lelio Di Carlo, Angelo Scarpola, and Ugo Rossi. Many of these men were also his relatives. Gambino had at least 8 arrests since 1929 for suspicion of committing a felony, alcohol bootlegging, federal alcohol tax violations, reckless driving, multiple traffic law violations, and possession of stolen property. In 1937, he was indicted for operating a huge liquor bootlegging ring for 2 years with his brother Carlo. He was one of 17 defendants. They smuggled case liquor and supplied sugar and other key staples for operating alcohol stills. The Gambino brothers were said to have become millionaires through the alcohol bootleg racket. Paul actually went on a lam to Italy for almost a year before turning himself in to the authorities. He later served a 2-year prison term. In the 1940s, he operated a black market of stolen and counterfeit ration stamps. This is where he and Carlo were alleged to have made their second fortune. Many mobsters were in the racket, but according to Valachi and others, the Gambino brothers were among the biggest operators in the racket, along with Sam McCarty. This ration stamp racketeering went on during all the war years, so the sustained level at which they dealt, coupled with the duration of the ring, ensured that they made a financial killing. And although gasoline coupons were key, meats, milk, and other foods, as well as nylons, dry goods, rubber, and other provisions desired by the public, ensured their continued success. Paul Gambino was known to have visited Lucky Luciano in Italy during the 1940s and 1950s, and he was a top advisor to his brother Carlo. In 1963, Paul was arrested for evading detectives in Brooklyn after spotting them tailing him. He was charged with multiple traffic law violations for running stoplights and signs, speeding, and making illegal turns and maneuvers. Over the years, Paul owned several major businesses both with and without his brother Carlo as a partner. One of these businesses was Blue Star Meat Market on Main Street in Flushing, Queens, as well as several retail store locations in this area. In 1967, a truckload of 1,048 cases of hijacked Polish hams valued at $35,000 was found at the market. He and his partner in the Blue Star Market, John Lopinto, who was also identified by the FBI in the 1963 Senate hearings as a captain in the Gambino family, were charged with criminally receiving stolen goods. But the ripple effect reached right into the Gambino family household. Paul's son-in-law, Paul D'Arpa, was picked up for harboring and concealing a fugitive his father-in-law, after authorities learned Paul had been hiding in the Diarpa home. Another business was Faro Foods Incorporated of Brooklyn, ostensibly owned by his son Frank Gambino and son-in-law Frank Faro. This was a large-volume wholesale supplier of Italian foods to pizzerias and restaurants in the New York and New Jersey area for many years. The company supplied restaurants and other businesses with mozzarella cheese, tomato products, flour, pizza boxes, and a variety of other products. Faro figured into several bankruptcy, frauds, and larceny cases over the years involving various wholesale cheese distributors, etc. Paul also owned Butcher Tools Company in Brooklyn. He created this company with Salvatore Guglielmini and Frank Faro in 1959. It supplied meat butchers, supermarkets, and food stores with a knife sharpening service. Within months of its formation, it had infiltrated and came to dominate the trade, taking over hundreds of sharpening accounts the New York Grinders Association trade group had for decades with Dilbert supermarkets, Trun's markets, meat wholesalers, and other large chain food stores and butcher shops. In 1962, the 170-member New York Grinders Association bought out Butcher Tools for $177,000 so they could rid themselves of this mob competition. So a company created for approximately $5,000 was sold by Paul for $177,000 only a few years later. The transaction later became the focus of a major criminal investigation and U.S. Senate testimony into business infiltration by the mob. In 1969, Gambino, Guglielmini, and Faro were subpoenaed to testify before the State Investigation Commission on underworld infiltration of legitimate business. Paul repeatedly took the Fifth Amendment to over 30 questions about Butcher Tools Company, Blue Star, and several other firms he operated. After the purchase, the Butchers Association auctioned off the assets of the firm, including ragtag vehicles, old, broken, rusty knives, and other equipment, which brought less than $1,000 at auction. As an interesting side note, during the 1977 New Jersey State Commission investigation hearings into organized crime's infiltration of Atlantic City, which focused heavily on the Cherry Hill Gambinos and Philadelphia mob boss Angelo Bruno, SCI Special Agent Anthony Quaranta testified about an unusual incident. He said that at one point, he didn't specify the exact date, but it was presumably in the late 1960s, that Emmanuel Adamita was stopped near the Canadian border, and in the car with him was none other than Paul Gambino. Now, the Adamita brothers, Antonio, Dominic, and Emmanuel, were known to be closely tied to the Cherry Hill Gambino brothers, John Rosario and Giuseppe, and were believed to be part of their crew. And the Gambino brothers were cousins of Paul and Carlo Gambino. Quaranta found the incident odd because Paul Gambino was driving Emmanuel, and Paul was, of course, a captain in the Gambino family. When the commission chair asked the agent if it was unusual for a capo to be behind the wheel, Quaranta replied, "Well, I guess it would be as natural as President Carter driving a Secret Service agent." If you want more on the Cherry Hill Gambinos and the Adamita brothers, check out our full series here on the channel, and our expanded version on the Button Guys website. As for Paul Gambino, by the early 1970s, he was keeping a low profile. He is listed as dying on February 16, 1974, at the age of 68. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Mob Fireside Chat. Until next time.